Welcome everybody, and good afternoon or good late morning for those of you on the West Coast. And welcome to today's session, Managing Healthcare Operations, Grant Requirements for Sustainability Planning. This is our first session of our Managing Healthcare Operations Community of Learning. And in this session, we will be sharing the basics of grant requirements for sustainability planning. Participants will learn proactive strategies to ensure sustainability, grant funding, and how to communicate successes to your funders effectively. Thanks again for joining us. And my name is Lyzbeth. I am the Manager of Technical Assistance here at NCUIH. And joining me from the NCUIH team are Maho, our Director of TA. She'll be presenting with me, and also our communications team, Amy Lord, and also Kayla, who will be dropping some items into our chat during the presentation. We are honored to have you all here with us today, and we kindly ask that you place your name, your organization, tribal affiliation, and title into the chat box. Next slide, please. Just a quick disclaimer, this event is made possible by the Indian Health Services Cooperative Agreement Funds. It is solely the responsibility of the National Council of Urban Indian Health and does not necessarily represent the views of IHS or the Department of Health and Human Services. Next slide, please. For those of you that are new to our work here at NCUIH, here is a slide with just a little background. NCUIH is a national representative advocating for the 41 urban Indian organizations contracting with the IHS under the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act. NCUIH strives to improve the health of over 70% of the American Indian and Alaska Native population that lives in urban areas supported by quality healthcare centers. Next slide, please. And just a few housekeeping items before we proceed. Please note that this session is recorded for educational and quality improvement purposes. The recording will also be available and shared to make it accessible to those who may have missed it or want to revisit content later. Next slide, please. Please note that your mics have been muted upon entry. However, we always encourage participation and engagement in our sessions. We invite all the participants to turn on your camera and post questions and comments into the chat box. There will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end of our presentation today. Next slide, please. As we continue our webinar, we continue active participation, and we value your questions and insights. To make the most of this interactive experience, here's how you can ask a question on Zoom. Just click on the chat icon, type your question, and hit enter to send it to the group. Next slide, please. We hope that through your participation in today's webinar, you will learn the basics of grant requirements for sustainability planning, employ proactive and strategic planning steps to ensure sustainable grant funding, and lastly, we will cover communicating success to funders through documentation and narration. Next slide, please. So as I said, I'm here with my colleague, Maho. I'm going to pass the mic over to her, and she will go over the first learning objective. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. We're going to be talking about the basics of grant requirements for sustainability, and that involves planning. So if we could go into the next slide. We first want to recognize that grant writing can feel overwhelming due to its complex requirements and the competitive nature of securing funds. So for newcomers, it often presents a steep learning curve. And navigating through detailed guidelines, crafting compelling narratives, and managing extensive reports can be quite challenging. Additionally, it's really critical to integrate sustainability into your proposals to ensure that projects are not only well funded, but also capable of continuing long after the grant period, contributing to lasting impact and success. Next slide, please. Here you see a slide that highlights one of our urban Indian health organizations, and this is Bakersville American Indian Health Project. And so they've demonstrated that success through Solidify and winning 14 grants spanning over the course of 3 years. Quite intense, but what it has allowed them successfully to do is increase its grant funding by approximately $21 million to focus on capital projects and infrastructure, and using their funds to really enhance and expand their healthcare program service delivery. And we wanted to share a quote, and this comes from Angel, who is the Galvez, who's the CEO at Bakersfield Project. And he says, "We work together as a team, all of us assuming the responsibility of a grant writer, all telling the story about the needs of our people, sharing the unique insights and hardships and healthcare challenges faced by persons we serve." So we had the pleasure of sitting in the audience in one of his presentation, and these were his wise words that he shared with a group of individuals that were really talking about where do we begin with grant funding, and what do we do, and how do we do? And there were a lot of scared individuals in the room, but Angel and his team really came to the rescue by providing an example and sharing their experience and their journey and how much of that hard work provided success. So if we could move into the next slide. This slide here encourages a shift in how we approach grant proposals, moving from a traditional view to a partnership-based perspective. Traditionally, grants are seen as temporary funding sources, with relationships viewed as transactional or and focused on compliance. So the new perspective, however, really frames grants as a call to action, where funders and organizations collaborate as partners to achieve meaningful, sustainable change. And this approach emphasizes building long-term relationships, aligning, sharing missions, and working together to ensure that projects not only receive funding, but also drive that lasting impact in the communities we serve. We could move to the next slide. We're talk briefly about the basics of grant requirements for sustainable efforts, including it's really important for our awareness. If we are not already aware, there are primarily 3 main types of grants. There's the federal, state, and private foundations, and funded. And some of these come with stringent reporting and compliance requirements. Primarily, I'm speaking of like the federal grants. The state grants are provided by states, government entities, and are typically geared towards more that localized goals, statewide goals, and objectives. The private foundation grants are funded by nonprofit, typically, or for-profit organizations focusing on specific interests or areas of need. I will also note that federal funding can be intended to develop, be used or viewed as a seed to develop programs, but may not be intended to sustain them indefinitely. So it's really important to remind ourselves that when we are thinking about grant funds, majority of the time there's a specified period of funding period. And so to encourage ourselves and our teams to really think of it as seed dollars. How can we use these dollars to plant the seed and then really begin to grow the program and continue to fund in innovative ways to the efforts that we have outlined in some of these grant applications. When writing grants for sustainability, it's essential to focus on 3 key considerations. We first understand the funder's priorities by thoroughly researching the funder and reviewing all the guidelines, including the formats, deadlines, and eligibility, creating a checklist or a spreadsheet that can help ensure that you stay on track. Second, write clear and concise objectives about your project objectives by using the SMART goals and using an impact statement that incorporates storytelling to emphasize the value of your project. And finally, develop a detailed budget that breaks down costs into specific categories such as personnel, equipment, training, and overhead to present a clear financial plan. Keep in mind with the budget and the budget narratives, it really you have to make sure that you're aligning that and it makes sense with the application itself, that they align clearly and that the dollars you will be utilizing specifically speaks to your project work plan and proposal. Okay. All right, next slide. To ensure a successful grant application proposal, it's really important to focus on several key elements. The first is to create a strong project narrative by developing a clear need statement, outlining your methodology with a detailed work plan, and establishing an evaluation plan to measure the program success. Next, build a sustainability plan that explains how the project will continue after that grant period and what its long-term community impacts would be. Lastly, consider your organization's capacity by highlighting your experience and expertise, as well as detailing your qualifications of the key staff involved to assure the funders of your ability to execute the project. Okay. Next slide. Sustainability refers to the ongoing achievement of a project's goal and outcome. Even after the grant funding has ended, it's not just about continuing the project as it is securing more funds, but about ensuring that the goals are adapted to changing conditions and the community needs. For example, a community health program focused on diabetes and hypertension. Sustainability means ensuring that the community continues to have access to these resources, education, and care, and will improve health outcomes long after the grant period. It's about making lasting, meaningful impacts. And next slide. Sustainability is crucial to funders because it really ensures their investment will have a long-term impact, maximizing the return on the resources they provide. It also helps to build the credibility of the organization by demonstrating a commitment to lasting results. Sustainability ensures the continuity of services between the grant period, preparing the organization for future funding opportunities. And additionally, it aligns with the organization's strategic plan, showing that the funded project fits within its long-term mission and vision, and further strengthening its relationship with funders. And finally, my last slide, sustainability planning, it really involves three key components: the financial, programmatic, and community sustainability. The financial sustainability focuses on diversifying fund sources, creating a detailed budget, and managing funds efficiently. The programmatic sustainability ensures the continuity of the program by evaluating its progress and adapting where it is necessary. And the community sustainability really involves engaging key stakeholders and continuously adapting to meet evolving community needs. Together, these components help project maintain long-term impact successes and illustrates by the example of health clinics, for example, the hypertension program, which sustained in its success by diversifying funding, regularly evaluating its impact, and engaging community partners. All right, I'll hand it back over to Liz from here.
Thanks, Evie, for covering the basics of grant writing and sustainability. In this next section, we will focus on employing proactive and strategic planning steps to ensure sustainable grant funding. Next slide, please. So to effectively align your grant goals with community needs, it's crucial to take a comprehensive and thoughtful approach. Start by Actively engaging your community from the beginning. Hosting focus groups or community meetings allows you to gather valuable insights into what the community truly needs and values. Building strong relationships and trust with community leaders and organizations is essential in your sustainability plan. These partnerships not only provide support, but also help ensure that your project is well integrated into the community fabric and more likely to be embraced. Cultural relevance is another key factor. It's important that the programs or interventions you develop are tailored to the specific cultural context of the population you're serving. This ensures that your initiatives are respectful and effectively address the community's unique characteristics and needs. One effective tool to help structure your project is the logic model. This framework offers a clear visual representation of how your program will achieve its goals and how those goals align with the community's needs. Another helpful model that we use in public health is the pre-seed proceed model, and this model is also available for you to use and can be valuable. It guides you through addressing needs, setting objectives, implementing interventions, and evaluating outcomes, ensuring that each step of your project is closely aligned with your community's priorities and results in meaningful impact. Tailoring your strategies to the specific needs identified through community data and feedback is crucial. This approach ensures that your project goals are responsive and relevant. Maintaining continuous communication with your community through various channels such as webinars and educational initiatives helps keep everyone informed and engaged, and it will also allow you to gather ongoing feedback and make necessary adjustments to your project. Finally, consider highlighting direct feedback from beneficiaries, staff leadership, and other stakeholders. This feedback provides concrete evidence of the positive impact of your organization's engagement with the community, reinforcing the value and effectiveness of your efforts. By incorporating these strategies, you'll be well positioned to ensure that your grant goals are effectively aligned with the needs of the community, leading to successful and sustainable outcomes. Next slide, please. So as we discuss sustainability planning, it's crucial to start thinking about your project or your program's sustainability early on to lay a strong foundation for long-term success. By beginning this process ahead of time, you can identify strategies that will support the program's ongoing effectiveness. Setting clear and realistic expectations ensures that your goals are achievable and that all stakeholders are aligned with the program's vision. Additionally, using grant performance data to refine and continue effective activities helps optimize your strategies and maintain relevance. In the next few slides, we'll explore these 5 key steps for sustainability planning in detail. First, we'll clarify the vision of your program, which sets the directions and goals. Next, assessing resources will help you to understand what you have and what you need. Finding champions who can advocate for you and support your program is also vital in the planning process, as well as communicating your plan effectively will ensure that everyone is on the same page. And then finally, building capacity and evaluating the plan will help you implement and adjust as needed to ensure long-term success. Next slide, please. So we'll start with clarifying your vision. This is a critical first step in sustainability planning. It begins with understanding your purpose, the why behind your program. This is where you have the opportunity to be creative and craft your compelling story that draws funders in and demonstrates the significance of your work. For instance, in our hypertension public health program, the purpose might be to address the high rates of hypertension in a specific community. Start by framing a powerful problem statement or narrative that highlights the urgency and impact of hypertension on the community's health. This story is crucial as it sets the stage for why your program is needed and why it matters. Next, set long-term goals for your program. Think about where you want the program to be in 5 or 10 years, long after the grant ends. Ask yourself, what lasting changes do you hope to achieve? For a hypertension program, this might include reducing hypertension rates by a specific percentage or improving overall cardiovascular health in your community. Your vision should articulate these long-term aspirations, showing your funders that you have a sustainable and evolving plan for achieving significant impact. Finally, align your vision with your funders' priorities. Research what matters to your potential funder. What are their goals and interests? Ensure that your program's objectives match these priorities. For example, if a funder prioritizes preventative health initiatives, highlight how your hypertension program focuses on prevention and education. Demonstrating this alignment shows funders that your program is a good fit for their investment. And by clarifying your vision with a compelling narrative, long-term goals, and alignment with funder priorities, you lay a strong foundation for a sustainable and successful program. Next slide, please. So assessing and understanding your resources is crucial for maintaining and scaling your project behind the initial funding period. And 2 slides ago, I shared, using a logic model can be helpful. And that is something, a model where you will be able to assess resources that you currently have and resources that you might need. This step ensures that you have a clear picture of what's needed to sustain and expand your program effectively. So how do you do that? You can begin by conducting a thorough needs assessment within your community and within your organization, evaluating what resources your program currently uses, and identify what will be required to scale it up in the future. This includes assessing staff needs, equipment, technology, space. Next, list potential partnerships, identify local businesses, nonprofits, universities, and other funders that could support your program. And sometimes, we can be hesitant to reach out to those others in our community. But I'm sure, like many of you, I find that, these external partnerships, many people want to help. They just need to know how. Consider how these organizations might provide resources such as expertise, funding, or in-kind contributions. For instance, partnering with a local university might provide access to research support or student volunteers, while a local business could offer financial sponsorship. Leveraging resources between organizations can also be helpful, and you can do this by exploring how collaborations could potentially enhance your program's sustainability. Combining resources with other organizations can lead to shared efficiencies and broaden your program's impact. For example, if 2 nonprofits with similar goals collaborate, they might share facilities or staff to reduce cost and increase reach. When writing your grant proposal, communicate your resource needs clearly. Outline what you have, what you need, and how these resources align with your long-term vision of the project, tying it all together. Be specific about how additional resources will help scale up and sustain your program. Track and monitor resources throughout your grant cycle and beyond. Regularly review resource usage and assess whether you're meeting your needs. This ongoing monitoring helps ensure that resources are used effectively and can guide adjustments as needed. Align your resource needs with your long-term vision for your project and ensure that every resource you seek or use supports your ultimate goals and contributes to the program's sustainability. By thoroughly assessing your resources, building strategic partnerships, and communicating your needs, you can create a robust plan for maintaining and scaling up your program effectively. Next slide, please. Finding champions and building strong partnerships are vital components of your sustainability plan, and they play a crucial role in the long-term success of your program. Champions are individuals or groups who are passionate about your cause, willing to advocate for your program, and can often open doors to new opportunities and resources. These champions can be community leaders, influential stakeholders, or even members of your own organization who are deeply invested in the mission of your program. Think for a moment about who might be champions in your community or within your organization. Champions can also help amplify your program's message, garner support, and drive momentum. For example, in a hypertension public health program, a local healthcare provider, or a respected community member who shares your vision can lend credibility, advocate for your work, and help attract other supporters or funders. Their influence can significantly impact how your program is perceived and valued within your community. Building partnerships is equally essential for sustainability. Partnerships with local businesses, nonprofits, academic institutions, and other community organizations will allow you to pool resources, share expertise, and collaborate on common goals. These relationships can provide additional funding, in-kind contributions, and access to networks that might otherwise be out of reach. Next slide, please. So as we think about building partnerships, it's also important to focus on meaningful engagement that fosters collaboration and aligns with shared goals. As I discussed in the previous slide, partnering with local organizations, businesses, or even universities can expand your program's reach and resources. Focus on initiatives that intersect with your mission. For example, partnering with a university on research or a local business or community health events can bring valuable expertise and visibility to your program. Engage key stakeholders by involving them in advisory boards or planning committees. This inclusion not only gives them a voice in the process, but also turns them into advocates who champion your cause within their own network. Hosting cultural events that resonate with the community can further strengthen these relationships. Events that highlight shared values, build trust, and demonstrate your program's commitment to culturally relevant approaches. And finally, it's important to conduct regular surveys to maintain alignment and community needs and partner expectations. This feedback loop helps you adapt and ensure that your partnerships remain strong and relevant. Next slide, please. So communicating your plan effectively with stakeholders is crucial for building support, ensuring transparency, and fostering collaboration. So why is this important? Clear communication helps stakeholders understand your vision, their role in the project, and how their involvement contributes to the overall success. When stakeholders are well informed, they are more likely to be engaged, provide valuable input, and advocate for your program. So how do you communicate your plan effectively? Start by sharing your vision and goals early on. You use clear, accessible language to outline what you hope to achieve and why it matters. Tailor your message to your audience, whether it's board members, community leaders, or funders, so they see how your objectives align with your interests. Using multiple communication channels to reach your stakeholders, such as meetings, newsletters, webinars. These touch points keep everyone updated on progress, challenges, and next steps. Visual tools like infographics or dashboards can also be helpful in simplifying complex data, making it easier for stakeholders to grasp key points at a glance. Also, invite feedback regularly. Stakeholder input is invaluable. It not only improves your plan, but also fosters a sense of ownership among those involved. Consider setting up focus groups, surveys, one-on-one meetings to gather insights and address concerns at various points within your project. Finally, be transparent about your successes and challenges. Regularly update stakeholders on milestones achieved, obstacles faced. This openness builds trust and demonstrates your commitment to working collaboratively towards shared goals. Next slide, please. So capacity building is a crucial element for any strategic plan, serving as an investment in your program's long-term success and sustainability. It goes beyond immediate needs, focusing on equipping your team and organization with the skills, resources, and knowledge to thrive beyond the initial funding period. By strengthening your internal capabilities, you build a solid foundation that allows your program to grow, adapt, and respond effectively to future challenges. Key steps in capacity building include assessing your current skills and resources, investing in training and professional development, so make sure you have written that into your grant and also your project plan as well, and strengthening your organizational infrastructure. Developing leadership and governance is also essential, and engaging leaders at all levels ensures strong strategic direction and decision-making. And next slide, please. And lastly, evaluation is essential for ensuring the programs are effective, sustainable, and culturally relevant. Evaluation planning should begin early in the program's formation, reflecting the unique context and needs of the communities being served. By integrating evaluation from the start, programs can continuously adapt and respond to feedback, making the findings more meaningful and actionable. Using a strength-based approach emphasizes identifying and building upon the community's own solutions, focusing on their resilience and existing assets rather than just highlighting gaps. Culturally relevant evaluation also means decolonizing data practices, ensuring that data collection and usage are rigorous, respectful, and designed to benefit the community directly. Community-centered evaluation involves engaging members actively in the process, appreciating their perspectives, and incorporating their viewpoints. This approach not only enhances the evaluation's accuracy, but also fosters a sense of ownership and trust, leading to impactful outcomes. Next slide, please. Storytelling can add depth to evaluations by highlighting the human impact beyond numbers, making data more relatable and engaging. It's culturally relevant and resonates with many communities, conveying knowledge and lessons learned in a meaningful way. Including community stories or photos fosters ownership, ensuring that voices of those impacted shape the narrative and drive change. Put an emoji in the chat if you have used storytelling in your evaluation process. If you haven't, it's pretty easy and the part of the data collection that I personally enjoy the most. Start by collecting personal stories alongside of quantitative data to capture the full picture of your program's impact. Incorporating visuals like photos, videos, and quotes to make your evaluations more engaging. Showcase stories, success from multiple perspectives from your staff, participants, elders, youth, to provide a well-rounded view that reflects diverse experiences within your program. Storytelling enhances sustainability planning by connecting your stakeholders to the lived experiences of those your program serves, building support and demonstrating value in a way that numbers alone cannot. I see we have some emojis in there. Thank you. Next slide, please. And with that, we'll go on to our third learning objective for this webinar, which is communicating success to funders through documentation and narration. Next slide, please. So effective documentation is important for sustainability as it provides a clear record for your program's progress, successes, and challenges. For example, in a hypertension program, documenting patient outcomes, treatment adherence rates, community feedback helps illustrate the program's impact and areas for improvement. Additionally, ensuring that you have tracking systems in place to monitor budget expenditures, such as costs for medical supplies, staff salaries, and outreach activities, supports financial transparency and strengthens your case for continued funding. These comprehensive records, combined with quantitative data and personal stories, are essential for tracking progress and demonstrating impact. Next slide, please. So we've already explored the power of storytelling in evaluation, but it's equally important in communicating with funders and crafting your grant proposal. Storytelling in grant writing engages and connects emotionally, transforming data into compelling narrative that resonates with funders. So it really helps to paint the picture that funders want to see, and it amplifies community voices and reflects the cultural and personal experiences of those served, making your proposal stand out. By highlighting the emotional impact and community successes, storytelling not only enhances your grant and report, but also builds trust and demonstrates the profound value of your work, increasing your chances of securing support. Next slide, please. So how do you effectively tell your organization's story? When telling your organization's story effectively, start by emphasizing this strength-based narrative that I had shared previously. Focus on the resilience and achievements of your community rather than highlighting challenges or deficits. Celebrate what's working well and showcase success stories to demonstrate the positive impact of your effort. As I said, incorporate authentic voices from your community by weaving in testimonials and stories and perspectives from a diverse range of voices, including elders, youth, and program participants. This approach brings your work to life, making it more relatable and impactful for funders. Additionally, tailor your narrative to align with each funder's specific priorities. Research each funder's mission and customize your story to highlight how your goals align with their vision, and clearly show how your program meets their focus and demonstrates a shared commitment. So remember this partnership we had talked about earlier on in this webinar. This targeted approach helps ensure your proposal resonates strongly with potential funders. And next slide, please. And then lastly, just to wrap it up, as we wrap up today's webinar, we hope that you find this training and slide deck to be a valuable resource on your journey towards sustainability. Remember that sustainability is a long-term commitment, and revisiting these strategies and insights as needed will help you stay on track. Key takeaways include the importance of early and proactive planning, engaging with your community, building strong partnerships, and effectively communicating your successes. We also talked about integrating storytelling into your grant writing and evaluation, and ensuring through documentation, you'll be well equipped to demonstrate your program's impact and secure ongoing support for your organization and its programming. And we will be, after the webinar, sharing a key takeaway document that does have, a little checklist for you to use as you work on your grant writing, and will also include some templates as well that focus more on the sustainability planning aspect, and so that can be incorporated as you begin your strategic planning for grants. Next slide, please. Here are some additional resources for sustainability planning in grant writing. And again, these will be shared out with the slide deck and also in a one-page key takeaway document. Next slide, please. And with that, we'd love to open the floor up for Q&A. Feel free to unmute yourself or drop any questions that you might have to get us into the chat. But to get us started, because sometimes I know questions can be slow in the coming, I'd love to hear from you about what strategies or approaches have worked well for you in achieving program sustainability. Really specifically, how maybe you've incorporated the storytelling aspect into that as well. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Kimberly from American Indian Health and Family Services in Detroit, Michigan. I've definitely used storytelling, like kind of testimonial quotes from community members in grant proposals and in reports, as well as in other fundraising things. I have a question, and how do you gather like information about or from clients and patients and community members that is like adhering to HIPAA and things like that, where we're not supposed to say who our patients are, but yet if we just do a quote saying this is from a community member, I've gotten feedback that they want to like have a name associated with that.
I think there's several ways you can do this. You can do it at a programmatic level. Customer service satisfaction surveys are a great tool where you can de-identify data and are able to utilize like free text where there might be a question on the organization asking about their experience and maybe what they've learned through that program or how their health may have improved. That's really important. The other is through focus groups and much more of the formal qualitative different approaches. You can utilize data from that as well. I think when it comes to HIPAA, a lot of the times when you're developing your programs, it's really important that if someone is entering a program for example, maybe a diabetes prevention program or a cardiovascular program or a walking program, look at your intake forms and making sure that your organization has processes, internal strategies and processes in place that speaks to how you collect data, what you do with the data, and that you have the consent of them. I think of the patient population you're serving and the group you're working with. If you are working on a research project, typically there are HIPAA compliant forms. I think it's the HIPAA B form, for example, you utilize, and with your intake forms, right? You can actually attach some of those forms so that you're directly requesting for their the data information you provide. Majority of the time, or I should say a lot of the times, and most of the times, the data is de-identified. And typically, if you're doing a research project and you're proposing it to be funded, it's really important to make sure all of those proper steps are included in your grant application, so they're clearly outlined. And if your organization doesn't have a process in place, it's really important to start to think about developing those things as well. Kimberly, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to open up the floor for others who have had success in using the data that comes from the population they serve too. That's a great question.
I'm interested too if anybody is able to share any unique partnerships that they've developed as part of their sustainability plan, or maybe even challenges that you might have in forming these partnerships.
I just want to add, when it comes to the conversations around partnership and as it relates to grant applications, developing these partnership with key stakeholders may look like, if you're a healthcare system, where are you referring your patients? And what does that partnership, what should it entail, and what are the things that you all do to work together to create an environment and making sure that there's that continuity of care across organizations, whether you're referring or you're jointly working on improving the health and well-being of a group of individuals in a community. So even looking at it from that point, it's really important to understand who those resources are in your community, and creating a community level community partnership meetings, talking about the grant, the proposal itself. And from those relationships and partnership, you're able to garner letter of support. And that strengthens your application as well. But once you're funded, it's really also important to keep that communication going. In my example, those community partnership, for example, if they were to be established, keeping your resource, the different community stakeholders and the different entities and organizations you're collaborating with well informed about how the project is moving along. Maybe your recruitment is not doing so well with this particular project, and it's on cardiovascular disease prevention work, right? And so you're not getting enough of your target population into your grant funded project or program. You would then, for example, turn to these community partners and really talk about how can we come together to make our program successful. they're part of those discussions as well. So sometimes we think internally, but it's also really important to make sure those relationships are established outside of our organizations.
Okay, thank you for that, Evie. Any other questions or comments? All right, at this point, we will continue with slides then. Next slide, please. All right, thank you. As with all of our webinars here at NCUIH, we are always striving to improve our product and also to share additional topics that folks would love to see in our webinars. So please fill out today's survey. You can take a photo of the QR code or you can copy and drop the link into your browser and complete it that way. We'll also follow up with an email early next week, which will have information on how to do this as well. Next slide, please. Additionally, I just wanted to make our UIOs aware that we do offer one-on-one technical assistance. So if there is needs that you have with regard to additional resources on grant planning for sustainability, please feel free to reach out. These are just some of the areas that we do provide TA on. And if you click this link here on this page, which is also dropped into the chat, it will take you to a form where you can fill out a TA request. We're happy to help. Next slide, please. And then lastly, I just wanted to make everybody aware of some upcoming NCUIH events. As I shared in our first slide, this session is part of a 3-session series. So next month, which is October already, on October 10th, our session will be on fundraising and capital campaigns for urban Indian organizations, where we will highlight the work of one of our UIOs. November 12th, we have a webinar on protecting our communities, best practices for RSV and flu vaccination. There's an extra E there on flu, sorry about that. And then on November 14th, the third of our Community of Learning series, which will be a really great one, leveraging tax credits or tax incentive loans and grants from the Inflation Reduction Act. So that should be super interesting. Also, you can click this link here to see if your voter registration is all set and ready to go next month in November. And then lastly, we are in the process of planning for our annual conference in Washington, D.C., which will be held April 22nd to 25th this year. So more information to come shortly on that. And next slide, please.
Liz, we did get a question in the chat if the recording for this webinar will be sent out after the fact.
It sure will. You can expect in the email that you registered for this event, you'll receive a copy of the recording as well as the slides, and then just a document of some resources to help you with your sustainability planning. All of our webinars are also hosted on our NCUIH website as well, but we really would appreciate for you to share it out if you have any colleagues that were not able to attend today's webinar. Great. And before we close out, if anybody else has any additional questions, feel free to jump off mute, or you can just put them into the chat. And Kayla, thank you for sharing some of these resources in the chat. Well, with that, we'll wrap up today's session. I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. Hopefully you found our webinar to be informative and helpful as you move forward with your sustainability planning.